Right, now you can see I've made a mix here of raw sienna, burnt umber and the white. Only partially mixed, and that's quite good when you're doing this sort of thing because it keeps a little bit of interest. You can see there's sort of a darker area here, a lighter area there, and it also almost paints the darn thing for you. Now here's a useful little dodge. I've got an old card mount that I use for a watercolour, except I didn't use it for a watercolour because I made a mess of it. So what I've done is I've cut it at each corner, so you've effectively got two L shapes. It allows you to temporarily just put a little frame around the picture, because it shows you if there's anything that's too near the edge of the picture, or generally how the composition is coming along. Right, and we're going to start doing the stern of the boat like that. I'm actually going to make it slightly bigger. Don't want it too big, but okay, you can see we painted a white, more or less pure white colour here, and a pale blue here for the shadow side of the boat. Just wanted to show you how easy it was. Even though you've painted the sand already on the beach, you can just add water or take it out at will. But you can do that with acrylics because it really is the medium for the undecided in a way. You can put these little rock pools in now, decide you don't like them, and take them out just by streaking over some darker paint and put the sand back in. And then if you change your mind again, you can put them back. In fact, you can have the tide coming in and out about 4 times in the same painting if you want. Now what I'm going to do, just here and there, I'm not going to make this too obvious. It's going to be a fairly subtle effect, but I want to just get a hint of those houses into the reflection there. But I don't want to make it a mirror image. At this stage, it's just going to be that yellowy brown grey sort of effect. You see, we're just going to put streaks of sky colour back into the water like that, but in doing so we'll just retain a subtle hint of those reflections. Okay, just a little hint of 2 cabin windows there. They're no more than just 2 angled lines, and I think we'll have a light orangey coloured hatchway that gives an impression of brown doors and so on. Right, we'll just put a few mixes of lights and darks in there as if there's something happening inside the cabin there and I don't know what's going on. Now what we do want to do is to put a bit of shadow underneath the boat here. So again, remembering the sun's coming from this side, and leave a little gap, and that sort of really tells the viewer that the boat is lifted up off the ground. It'll be a lot stronger and darker underneath here. Now you can see how by putting that shadow underneath that boat, how it's turned the sunlight on, not only for that boat but also starting to turn the sunlight on for the whole picture. I'm just going to stipple on some lighter highlights on some of the trees like that. Right, I don't want to overdo that because these trees are essentially in the background, and although I want some highlights on them, I don't want them jumping forward too much. Oh, and we're going to put some chimneys on windows and doors, so we'll do that now. Okay, we're just going to put a hint of a window or 2 and a door there. Just the merest hint of blobs for the windows. Just a little bit of a line underneath to create the roof line. Remember, you're not dealing in detail here. Right, what I'm going to do now is take a palette knife and some of the paint. I'm actually just going to try spreading this all over the bottom corner of the painting here. What I'm trying to do really is to get a 3D effect. And you see you start to get some nice hit and miss effects with the palette knife. Rocks and stuff by accident, and stones, and that's what I was trying to get. It's really just to demonstrate how versatile acrylic paint is. Okay, we've let that dry for an hour or so, and we've got a nice 3D hard bumpy effect where these rocks will be, and just by simply putting the paint on here with the palette knife and swishing this about, it's almost created the rocks and the stones without me doing anything at all. Right, I'm using a fairly small brush. This is just a cheap nylon round brush. It's actually a number 1 round, so it's only going to be a case of putting the odd line in here and there to create these other little boats out in the distance. But once we put a mast on, and the fact that we've got a small boat here, the eye will tell the viewer automatically that these shapes you see in the distance are other boats. Now when you're doing reflections in water, dark colours are slightly lighter than in the reflection than they are for the original object, but light colours are slightly darker. In other words, the tonal contrast is slightly less. And I think I'm going to put a little post here, and then that gives me an opportunity to put a reflection in the water there like that. Right, we're on the last leg now. What I've done here is to paint the red lower part of the hull in a sort of a reddy brown. But what I've done is mix predominantly the permanent rose, a touch of burnt umber and a touch of raw sienna, and it's given me the colour that I want. But you can see here how I've created this line, this rope, chain, whatever you want to call it, that's just hanging forlornly from this post here with a bit of seaweed dangling from it. And I'll show you how easy it is to create that. All I've done is taken a piece of scrap watercolour paper, but it could be anything. It could be thin card. If you wanted a bit thicker, you could have thick card like that, or whatever. All I've done is mixed some dark brown, the burnt umber, with the ultramarine blue, dispatched it and scraped it along the edge of the card. I haven't gone along the full length, only do it as long as you want the rope to actually be. Now I've done the same with a dollop of, well, it's not exactly white, it's sort of off-white. To make sure we get a nice thin edge is just take the excess off. You can scrape it back on if you want like that. I'm going to just place it carefully on the stern of the boat here, press that gently but firmly against the painting, and there you can see we've got that nice clean line of the rope with a lovely hit and miss effect, some dark and some light. Right, now you can see I've done the same thing with the very thin masts of these distant boats lying at rest, and all I've done is a similar situation to the car, except this time I've used a palette knife and I've just done no more than run it through basically white paint, but it's picking up other colours as well, and we'll do these two here, just laying that on the surface very carefully. You don't want to smudge, and then just running it down so that the bottom edge of the palette knife touches the boat, and there we are. Now what I'm going to do here is to add a mast which needs to be slightly thicker, but I don't want it to be too thick, otherwise it'll look ugly and clumsy. So what I'm going to use for this is the edge of a plastic ruler, which, because it's beveled, gives a fairly fine line. Because the ruler's fairly rigid, it'll give you a nice straight line for your mast. I've put the ruler on edge. I'm just holding it against the board to make sure I get a full coverage. Normally I'd have this done in about 2 or 3 seconds. It's only taking this long so I can demonstrate it. And there we are. We've got a nice dark mast. Now, not quite as much as the white has come out on that as I wanted, but at least I've got it nice and slender. Okay, this time we've had a little go of white on its own. You lift that off and there we go. You can see it's got that sort of white effect. No doubt those of you who are sailors rather than painters are looking horror at where I've put some of the lines and wouldn't put that down on a model boat setting sail in a tin bath, never mind a real boat on the high seas. But it's all designed to give an impression, and what it does prove, I think, is that acrylics is a very forgiving medium. I mean, we've had the tide in and out about 3 or 4 times during the course of the painting, so it just goes to show that you can change things as you go along very, very simply. So there we are, Red Wharf Bay in acrylics. Hope you enjoyed it.